I'm Gary, and welcome to the galley. In the galley today, I have 3 appetizers that I think are going to be fantastic for any Super Bowl party. Billy said, you really should do a video on appetizers for the Super Bowl, and I thought, yes, that's a great idea, but I didn't want to leave the boat. It rained all day yesterday, and then I thought, I'm always talking about how well-stocked my pantry is and my freezer, and you should not have to leave the boat to make 3 appetizers for the Super Bowl. So I challenged myself to that challenge, and I think I've done a fantastic job. I think you're gonna love these 3 appetizers. We've got 2 dips, and we have puff pastry pinwheels with pepperoni in them. So delicious. And first up is a cousin to that pepperoni pizza dip, but I'm making mine with Italian sausage. So let's get started on the first of our 3 appetizers and our Italian sausage dip. And I'm thinking that this dip is the cousin to that pizza pepperoni dip. I don't know if you've ever had that, but it's like cream cheese and like pizza sauce, pepperoni, cheese, and then you dip whatever you want to dip in it. But I made pizza dough. So I want to make pizza rolls around the dip, and then you can use that cooked pizza dough to dip up your dip. So I want to brown this pork sausage, and while that's browning, we'll jump over. So we have our sausage browning, and now I want to deal with my pizza dough. And I made this dough yesterday and just left it in the refrigerator overnight to sit and settle, and it will rise in the refrigerator just really slowly. But I want to do these and put these in the pan and let them kind of rise while we finish our dip. Now, you do not have to make your own pizza dough. You can buy pizza dough. Almost every grocery store now sells pizza dough. And if you buy your pizza dough, set it out at room temperature about 30 minutes before you try to work with it. Or you can make this dip without the pizza dough baked with it. You can just use crackers or anything you'd like to dip in it. And I want my pizza balls, if you will, to be the same size. So I'm going to use a cutter. Now I've got my huge cast iron here, but you could do this in anything that you can put in the oven. You can make this dip in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start doing these pizza balls and just line up around the edge of my pan here. So with my cutter, I want to cut, and this way I know that everything will be the same, and I'm just going to take these and form them into balls. And then I'm going to lay that around the edge of my pan. So I'm going to lay them around the edge of the pan like that, and I'm going to keep going and keep doing this until I get all the way around. So you can see I've got my pan ready. And I'm going to let these sit, and they're just going to start to rise while we get everything ready for our dip that we're going to put there in the center. So this is a funny story. I had bought these cans. I think I bought 2 of them, and I didn't have my glasses on, and I thought it was canned Roma tomatoes. And when I opened it to make marinara sauce, I realized, well, it already was marinara sauce, and it actually says in very small print, marinara sauce. So I guess saved me some time today, and it actually smells pretty good. So normally I'd make my own marinara sauce, so you can use a pizza sauce, you can use a marinara sauce, You can use a spaghetti sauce, use any kind of red sauce that you want to use, and if you want to make your own marinara sauce, then thumbs up for that. So for the base, I'm going to do cream cheese. Now, I'm going to add some cheese to my cream cheese and some Italian seasoning. So I've done an 8-ounce block of cream cheese, and to that I'm going to add a half of a cup of cheese. I did Romano. You could do Asiago, you could do Parmesan. And I'm going to get that mixed up. And then to that, I'm going to add a teaspoon of Italian seasoning. A big heaping teaspoon, don't be afraid. And this is going to form the base of our dip. Spoon that out into my skillet here. Just coming up to touch. And it's okay to leave a little bit of space around because that pizza dough is going to puff right up, so they don't have to touch. You can leave a little bit of a space. But if they do touch, that's okay too. So now, if you were choosing not to do the pizza and just do this in a casserole, this is a very fast dip to make. So your cream cheese layer, and then we're going to go in with our marinara on top of that. So I want to do a pretty good size layer of my marinara. Don't be skimpy. And on top of the marinara, we're going to go in with our sauce. I'm going to use my fingers, just make sure it's all crumbled up nice and small. So Italian sausage dip, I thought sounded really good. I know there's been the pepperoni pizza one's just been done to death. Okay, so now we've got our top covered with our Italian sausage. And next, I'm going to top this with mozzarella cheese. So I'm going to grate some mozzarella to put on top. I put my mozzarella in the freezer before I grate it. Mozzarella is such a soft cheese. It's really hard to grate. It just kind of clumps up inside there. Can you see how much that pizza dough has risen? So I'm going to cover the top with my mozzarella cheese. And then I think I'm going to sprinkle some of my Italian seasoning on top. And then I'm going to microplane some of that Romano on top. So I've got my oven on 400. I'm going to pop this in the oven for about 20 minutes. I don't think I can get this big pan in one. So we're out of the oven. Oh, this is going to be delicious. But I think it's going to be a little too hot to eat right now. I think it's finally cooled down enough to heat. And I'm making sure I've got some Italian sausage. I've got some of that cream cheese. Got marinara. I think I have it all. And I'm excited for a bite. You see the steam? Probably should wait a minute. Okay. Fantastic. It is like your favorite baked ziti in a dip form with pizza to dip into it. This will be fantastic for your Super Bowl party or any party or any time. You just need a fantastic dip. Up next, pepperoni pinwheels, puff pastry, pepperoni, Gruyere cheese, mustard, herbs de Provence. I can't wait for you to try these pepperoni pinwheels. They are one of my all-time favorites. So, Puff pastry is needed for this. Puff pastry is just one of those things. I always have a box of puff pastry in my freezer. It is so versatile. You can do so many things with it, from breakfast to dinner to appetizers. Pepperoni, I always have 2 or 3 sticks of pepperoni on board because you just never know when you might decide to make a pepperoni pizza. When the urge hits and you need a pepperoni pizza, it's nice to have pepperoni. The Gruyere cheese is left from the twice baked potato episode I just did. We were gifted some mustards and sausages and stuff for Christmas. This is one of the Belgian L's. I thought this would go really nicely with this. And also for Christmas, I got a package of herbs de Provence. So if you don't have herbs de Provence, it's not the end of the world. You can use Italian seasoning. Now, funny enough, Italian seasoning, despite its name, is actually an American recipe, while herbs de Provence is from France. And herbs de Provence features lavender, Savoy, tarragon, a lot of different things that aren't in our version of Italian seasoning. So if you can get your hands on some for this recipe, the herbs de Provence do enhance it. But it's not the end of the world if you want to use your Italian seasoning. So I put just a little bit of flour on my cutting board, and I just want to roll my puff pastry out. Not a lot, just a little bit. And this is another appetizer that, for a little bit of ingredients, you can really go a long way. And if your square isn't perfectly square, it's okay. So I'm going to cut this in half, and we'll work with 1/2 at a time. So I'm gonna cut this pepperoni on my mandolin here to get an even size. And if you were buying the ingredients for these, you could obviously buy your pepperoni already sliced. But this is what I had on the boat. This is what we're going to use. And then we'll have a nice thin, because you really want these thin, you got to roll it up. Now if you are cutting your pepperoni on a mandolin or by hand, I do suggest putting it in the refrigerator and letting it firm up. It does make it easier to slice. So I have a 1/2 sheet of puff pastry, and I'm just gonna roll that out just a little bit more. Okay, so we've got our puff pastry rolled out. I'm going to go with the mustard, and we're using that Belgian L mustard that I got for Christmas. And you can use any kind of mustard. I've used honey mustard, which I think turns out well. I've used Dijon, any mustard. They all turn out well. And we're going to spread those. Leave a edge at the top so that we can seal this when we roll it up. And then our cheese. And again, I have a smoked Gruyere, and that was something I had left over in the fridge. And Gruyere tends to be, when I make these, my cheese of choice. It's a good cheese for these, but any kind of cheese that you like, totally up to you. Next, our herbs de Provence, and they just really add something special to these. So I was lucky that my friend Miss Nancy gifted these to me for Christmas. So now they're coming in perfectly handy. And then we have our pepperoni. I hope I did enough. We're gonna sprinkle those around. And obviously they don't have to be perfect. We're gonna roll these up and slice them, so we're not looking for perfect round pepperonis. cover with pepperoni. And then I just like to pat it down just to get everything in there stuck. And when I roll, it tends to stay stuck. And we're going to start down here at the bottom and start rolling. Working our way up. And you want to stay, obviously, in a cylinder shape, but that's not always possible because your pepperoni is going to say we don't want to roll like that. And I've just got a little bit of water. I just want to make sure that this sticks. And there we go. And we're going to slice these. I just like to take that little big end piece off. So then I'm going to slice these in, I would say, 1/2 inch. And use a sharp knife for this. Now, a nice thing about this appetizer is you can get to this point the day before and wrap it in cellophane before you cut it. Don't cut it. Before you cut it, and put it in the refrigerator. And the next day, when you're ready for them, bring them out, unwrap them, cut them, and then put them in the oven. So I've got my sheet here. It's a piece of parchment paper. And these are going to get big around, so you don't want them to touch. You want to give them some space to open up. I've got my oven on 350. I'm going to pop these in the oven. I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes. And I'm going to come back and check on them in 15 minutes. They could take 20, 22 minutes depending on your oven, depending on how cold these are. So I'm going to pop these in the oven and we'll check on them in 15 minutes. And then I'll see you when they're ready. Pepperoni pinwheels. Let's have a taste. These make me happy. Puff pastry. What's not to love? Light, airy, crispy, fluffy, and then pepperoni and cheese, and you can, that herbs de Provence, you can really kind of pick it up, and that, I think it's the lavender that makes you go, that's so interesting. Another fun, easy appetizer for your Super Bowl party or any party. Here we are with our third and final appetizer, our second dip. And yes, I'm holding beets in my hand because I think not every single appetizer at your Super Bowl party has to be heavy and fatty or greasy. You can have some healthy options well. And with beets being a superfood, why not take a superfood appetizer to your next Super Bowl gathering? So if you're ready, let's make roasted beet hummus on top of whipped feta. Sound good? Let's do it. So one of the challenges that I faced for doing the dips and only using what's on board was I didn't have any bread and I didn't have any crackers. So the first dip, I solved that problem by making the pizza dough. So for this dip, I went searching for crackers, and all I could find was saltines. Well, saltines aren't the most exciting cracker ever. So I'm going to show you how we can jazz up those saltines and turn them into a whole new exciting cracker. And then for dinner last night, I made focaccia. And we're going to take that focaccia, slice it really thin, and make a nice thin cracker to use for our dip. So up first, let's get these saltines in the oven, and then I'll show you how I make my focaccia into a cracker. So I'm going to turn these saltines into a crispy, buttery, rosemary, Parmesan cracker. So I've got some melted butter in here, and I'm going to add some olive oil or avocado. I went avocado. I have some freshly chopped rosemary. If you don't have any fresh rosemary, dried rosemary will work. So I'm going to mix this up, and I'm just going to pour it over my saltines. And I don't know if you've ever made Christmas crack, but it's kind of like that. You're just going to cover these saltines in this butter rosemary oil blend, and they don't have to be floating in it. So I'm going to use my brush to make sure they're all covered. And then I'm going to microplane some Parmesan cheese. This is Romano. This is the leftover Romano from our first dip. I've got my oven on about 350, 375, and you have to watch these. They go fast. I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. And while those are in the oven, another way is if you have a baguette or some focaccia. Again, I made this focaccia last night for dinner just so I'd have it for today. And I have put this piece in the freezer because I want to microplane it. And you can do this with a knife and cut it really thin, and you see just how thin you can make these. I might go just a little bit thicker. And these are just going to be so light and crisp little crackers for this dip. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the rest of that butter that we didn't use on our saltines to brush these with. So lay them out on a pan. These are just great crackers to make for dipping. So good. I got space here, so let's do 2 more. So that butter, olive oil, rosemary mixture, I'm going to brush on these. And they're going to go right in that same oven. And now the saltines, obviously I didn't have to salt because they were already salted for me. But because this isn't, I'm going to go with some nice sea salt. And so these will be like sea salt rosemary crackers. So you can see we're just starting to brown. I want to give these just a couple minutes more, maybe 1. I'm going to check them after 1. I'm going to put both of those in the oven. I'm going to set my timer so you can see how beautiful brown they're getting. And these got a lot darker brown. And I'm going to let them get just a little bit more brown. They don't have to get this brown, but you can still feel they're a little soft. So I'm going to get them maybe 1 more minute. Okay, so we're out. We're starting to brown, and you can hear they're getting hard again. I'm going to set these aside to cool. I'm going to check our little thin crackers that we're making, and they're not quite ready. But keep checking them. I'm going to give them 2 minutes, and then we'll check them. And onto our beets. We're going to use 2 beets for this recipe. And I'm just going to slice these smaller so they puree easier. And beets are a superfood packed full of magnesiums, vitamin A, C, potassium, and they also help lower blood pressure. So I thought, what a perfect thing for Super Bowl, because people's blood pressure will definitely be rising. One of the appetizers can help them lower their blood pressure. One easy way to roast them is like I did here, and I just cut the top and the bottom, wrapped them in some foil, added just a little bit of avocado oil, and then that skin peels off. Really easy after you roast them. But then all those nutrients in that skin get soaked in there. Obviously, raw beets are packed more full of vitamins than when you cook them. So if you boil them and things like that, you really boil a lot of those nutrients out. But when you roast them and they're all contained like that, it really helps contain a lot of those vitamins and minerals. So we're going to go 2 roasted beets. So just roasted beets however you want. And if you choose to do it like this, these are small. They took about 50 to 60 minutes in a 350-degree oven, wrapped up like that. And then you can see we're starting to get hard and crunchy here. So these are done. Again, we're going to set those aside, let them cool down. So for your hummus, if you have a 15-ounce can of garbanzo beans or chickpeas, I do about 2 small beets, or you would do 1 large beet. And we also want some roasted garlic for this. And when I roasted my beets, I just roasted a head of garlic, and we'll just squeeze that out of there. And I'll probably do 2 or 3. And you can do raw garlic, but I just thought the roasted garlic would be much smoother for this. So we'll do 3 roasted garlic. Yep, that should be good. We'll do 3. I'm going to do this in parts because obviously I have a tiny food processor and I can't put all of this in my food processor. So I'm going to go a little bit at a time and do it in stages. And for the whole recipe, I'm going to do 2 tablespoons of tahini. Now, chickpeas and tahini are 2 great things to always have on board because you can make hummus, make roasted garlic hummus or roasted red pepper hummus, or obviously beet hummus. Super quick, easy snack. So I'm just going to guess this, but for the whole recipe, I want about 2 tablespoons. We want a little salt and pepper, and olive oil. And we're just going to set this spinning. Now, when it gets thick like this, you can save that juice from when you drain the chickpeas. But I like to just do cold water. Cold water really helps thin that out. And we're also going to do some lemon juice. I'm going to do the zest too. And then we'll squeeze some fresh lemon juice in there. And that's going to help smooth it out as well. So I like to add as I go so I don't get it overly liquid. So I just keep checking on it and pureeing it till it gets to the consistency that I like. So just look at how beautiful that is. Isn't that beautiful? Look at the color. Isn't it magnificent? So I'm going to continue. I'm going to probably do 2 more batches here to get all this done, and then we'll come back and do our feta. So back to our nifty little food processor here. And I'm going to do equal parts cream cheese and feta, or you would do equal parts cream cheese and goat cheese if you were doing goat cheese. And we're simply just going to whip this till it's light and airy. Obviously, you want your cream cheese at room temperature. My feta is at room temperature, and it will whip a little easier if it's at room temperature. And I did earlier drain this. And you're not going to need salt because your feta is going to be salty. And then we're just going to whip it till it's light and fluffy. All right, so can you see just how smooth that is? So to present this, I'm going to do the whipped feta as my base. I'm going to put that on the bottom of whatever serving dish you're using. I chose this plate because I thought it would really, the colors would be pretty and pop on it. So once you smooth that down, so again, this dip, raw vegetables, crackers, pita chips. I even think it'd be really good with apples too. And then we're going to top that with this. Look at the color of that. Is that not beautiful? Put that on top. Spread that around. And you can see this is 1 can and 2 small beets. This is a lot of hummus. The good thing about appetizers, just a little just goes such a long way. And I'm going to finish this off. I have some pomegranate molasses. And I'm just going to drizzle over. And I found some pepita seeds, some toasted pepita seeds. So for a little bit of a crunch. And there you have roasted beet hummus with whipped feta. Beautiful, huh? So I'm excited. You will fall in love with these saltine cracker that we turned into rosemary parmesan cracker. They are addictive. I'll go with one of those first. I'm going to get some feta. I'm going to get some beet. So beautiful. This is so good. It tastes so incredibly fresh. That's just what comes to mind. Is just fresh. So good. We'll try one of these crackers too that we made. And here, start crunching that up. This is something that you can just make all the time to eat because those beets are so incredibly good for you. So easy to make. Just a few ingredients. You don't even need the whipped feta or whipped goat cheese. Just make the hummus. You won't be sorry. I'm stopping. So we did our little pizza rolls with our Italian sausage cheese dip. That was divine. So good. And then our pepperoni pinwheels in the puff pastry with Gouda and herbs de Provence and mustard. And then, of course, our hummus. So 3 appetizers, perfect for any Super Bowl party. And I didn't have to leave the boat. Thank you so much. I hope everybody enjoys their Super Bowl, has a safe and happy, healthy time. And until next time, safe cruising.